And the cookies are sourdough and naturally fermented, so they're gut healthy.
I dare to say I've found and perfected the ultimate gut healthy drinks.
Next, for probiotics, we're going to make some fermented pickles.
Here's how you can turn almost any veggie into a gut-healthy ferment.
By fermenting the lemonade, you introduce beneficial bacteria that work wonders for your gut and create a really amazing tang flavour.
Fermented foods have taken over our feeds. Every time we scroll, we're hit with gut healthy this and heal your gut that. But what's the biology behind the buzzwords? How much of the hype is backed by science? And how would the intervention of eating more fermented foods really affect human health span and lifespan? To understand the potential effects of fermented foods as an aging intervention, we first need to get some background on how fermentation affects the gut microbiome. The microbiome is a community of microorganisms that occupy a given environment. In humans, the microbiome refers to these organisms living throughout the body in the gastrointestinal tract, mouth, nose, and skin. Many of these organisms play critical roles in the functioning of our bodies through symbiotic or mutually beneficial relationships. The gut microbiome, which is comprised of the collection of microorganisms living in our digestive tract, is especially important because it plays a critical role in various systems, including digestion and immune function. Surprisingly, the gut even affects brain health, thanks to the gut-brain axis, which is a communication pathway between the gut and the brain. In fact, when the microbiome is not functioning properly, there can be serious consequences. One such example is dysbiosis, a disruption of the normal microbiome population. Dysbiosis can activate the immune system and cause chronic low-grade inflammation, which is associated with serious diseases such as type 2 diabetes, obesity, and IBS. As we age, our gut microbiome naturally changes. These changes are influenced by our diets and lifestyle, the medications we take, and the amount we exercise. Over time, however, the microbiome's diversity declines, and the prevalence of facultative and obligate anaerobes associated with diseases increases. As a result, our digestion, immunity, and mental well-being can suffer. This is where fermented foods come in. These foods are rich in live microbes, particularly lactic acid bacteria, abbreviated to LAB, that may help rebalance the gut ecosystem. Fermented foods are a class of probiotics, meaning they contain living, beneficial bacteria that promote gut health. Common examples include yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and sourdough bread. An important distinction with sourdough, however, is that while this product is fermented and full of LAB bacteria, when the bread is baked, the probiotics are killed. There do seem to be solid nutritional benefits to consuming sourdough, especially over regular bread, but you should know that this is not quite the same as other fermented foods that contain live microbes. So, let's talk about those fermented foods with live microbes. How do they work? Do they actually help us age better? In a 2019 study, the Hor lab at University Sains Malaysia tested how probiotics affected aging rats. The result? The 3 LAB strains researched improved gut health by increasing beneficial bacteria and reducing inflammation. Specifically, they raised the Firmicutes bacteroidetes, or FB ratio, a known biomarker of gut health that tends to decrease in aging populations. Introducing LAB also reduced levels of pro-aging bacteria like Bacteroides and Prevotella, suggesting that targeted strains of LAB might help mitigate some age-related microbial changes. You may be asking yourself, what about humans? A 2022 clinical trial by researchers at UNC Chapel Hill looked at the effects of an LAB strain called Lactobacillus rhamnus GG, abbreviated to LGG, in older adults with mild cognitive impairment. After receiving the supplement, participants showed better neuropsychological test scores and shifts in gut microbiota that correlated with this cognitive improvement. These results support the theory of the gut-brain axis and that changes in the microbiome from fermented foods can affect brain function. In another human trial, researchers at Stanford found that eating fermented foods like yogurt and kimchi increased microbial diversity and reduced 19 inflammation markers, including IL-6, which is linked to autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease, and even some cancers. Interestingly, the study found that a high-fiber diet did not produce the same effect. This suggests that there's a unique anti-inflammatory potential specifically in fermented foods, which has a link to reducing the prevalence of the diseases of aging.
Okay, so this sounds promising, but let's be real. There are a few things to watch out for.
First of all, not all LAB strains are created equal. Researchers at the University of Hyogo showed that while certain LAB strains extended the lifespan of C. elegans worms, other strains found in the same fermented foods can actually shorten lifespan. So we need to be careful about generalizing strains to the food they're found in.
Another consideration should be the study design. Like these C. elegans worms, most of the research being done on LAB strains is conducted using animal models like mice. Translating those data to humans is complex and does not always work. So when they do use human subjects, the sample sizes have been small so far.
Additionally, most of the research so far has been conducted for short periods of time, including the Wastic and Hor studies. So while many of the results show promising short-term effects, it's unclear if those same results are sustained over time or if there are any harmful side effects that could develop as a result of the intervention.
On top of it all, some of these studies, like WASTIC, did not even include a control group.
What?
Control groups are vital for ensuring that the results we are seeing are actually due to the given intervention, so these results need to be taken with a grain of salt.
Definitely. So yeah, while there are promising studies underway, remember that we don't have a magic cure to halt the diseases of aging just yet. The social media hype over these fermented foods is sometimes more based on buzzwords than biological data.
That's true. And overall, it is important to remember to think critically and do your research.
Yeah, and maybe don't buy every influencer's gut health hack just yet.
Fermented foods and probiotics do show potential, especially when it comes to inflammation, gut diversity, and even cognition. But the research is still emerging. While there are some pretty promising studies out there, you should know that a diet full of fermented foods is not necessarily a cure-all. We recommend a cautious but curious approach. So maybe don't break the bank in hopes of finding an anti-aging miracle, but by all means, enjoy your yogurt, kimchi, and kombucha while knowing the evidence is still catching up to the trend.